Hi there, this is Alvin, and welcome to the Kickstart Commerce Podcast, where we share search marketing and domain investing strategies to help grow your business. In today's episode, our guest is Australian-based Ed Keay-Smith, a longtime domain investor, digital marketer, co-podcaster of domainer.com.au, and the founder of onlineimpact.com, a digital marketing agency aiming to help small to medium-sized businesses grow and dominate their online market share. Today, Ed and I discuss quite a bit in this show, like how attending an Overture demo opened his eyes to the world of buying, selling, and developing domain names. We also touch on why he chose to specialize in the buying and selling of .com.au, .co.uk, and .in domains. Ed also breaks down the Australian domain market, how he prices domain, and why he believes .com.au domains are truly a sleeper market for domain investors. In addition, Ed shares a few hand-regged, two-word hyphenated .com.au domains he sold for $5,000+. Oh, and before I forget, Ed reveals why and how affiliate arbitrage with 100+ domain names earns him high five-figure revenue annually. So with that, Ed, welcome, and thank you for making time to join us today.
Thanks, Alvin. Thanks for having us on. Good to be here. Love your show.
Yeah, certainly. So to kick things off here, let's share with the listeners at a high level just a bit about yourself, who you are, your personal and professional background.
Well, in terms of what I do for a living, I've got a digital marketing agency here in Perth, and if you look behind me or other side, where I can't see if you're looking, Western Australia, so the west of the map Australia behind me is where we're based. So a digital marketing agency, Online Impact, that I founded 17 years ago. So we do digital marketing stuff for small businesses, medium-sized businesses across Australia. We've got some clients overseas as well. And part of that is domain names, and it's quite a big part of it is helping clients find domain names, protect domain names. And also I've been a domain investor for the 17 years as well. And fascinating place to be in. Lots of things happening, so it's all good. And we're fortunate where we live. For those who don't know Australia very well, Western Australia has done quite well not out of COVID, but we've haven't had a lot of high impact with COVID. We haven't had that many cases, and we haven't had anybody with it for the last probably couple of months at least now. So we're sort of almost running along as normal here, which is different to some of the other states in Australia. So,
wow.
So Western Australia, there may be some listeners who have been here, seeing as you're in Texas, we'll put this in perspective. Texas would fit into Western Australia about 3.5 times. So that shows how big Western Australia is.
But it's not all inhabitable, correct? Or
no, it's not all inhabitable. It's most people live on the fringes along the coast. But a lot of it is habitable, but it's just such a big space that people live in all the best bits. Why live in the really hot desert bits when you can live in the we've got a lot of greenery in spots, so it's quite diverse, but it's big. It's 33% of the Australian landmass is Western Australia, and we don't have that many people. We've only got a couple of million people that inhabit the whole of the space. Yeah, so a little bit of geographical lessons there for the listeners who don't know anything about Australia.
National Domainographic.
Exactly.
And watch, somebody's going to go register that. Send me an email. Hey, I got the domain.
Yeah, that's it. .info.
Oh man, it's good. So then you're a domain investor, but digital marketer. So take us back all the way to the very beginning for you in terms of kind of like what got you into domain investing, which came first, domain investing or digital marketing, or was it both?
Yeah, it was. Well, I actually had some domain names that I bought. And look, it's a case of people, if only I knew what I know now back in 1995, I would have bought more domains. But the first domain that I ever registered from memory, and I still got it, is shortcourse.com.au, which is the Australian domain extension. And that's the name of my company, is the Short Course Company. We do a lot of training courses and various things. And so we registered that name, picked up a few other bits and pieces. Didn't know really a whole lot about the domain space, had a little bit of an idea that they had some value. I think I did some digging around trying to register some back then. And even then, all the ones I was looking for were gone. So I didn't really pursue it much from that point on. But anyway, sort of in the early 2000s, I mean, before sort of like 2000, I had different jobs. I was in the automotive industry, various things like that. Nothing to do with what I do now. And then in the early 2000s, I started a computer supply business. So had that for a couple of years. And then one day, my darling wife, Lois, she put a little ad in front of me that she saw. There was a workshop demonstration being held at one of the hotels in Perth by a company called Stores Online. Probably quite well known to some of the listeners that have been around for a while. I think they still exist. But basically, Stores Online would come, they'd do a big pitch to a whole room full of people and show them all about this new thing called e-commerce that was happening, and you just had to hand them a check for $3,000 and they would give you all the tools you needed to go and set up an e-commerce store. It was really, really complicated and messy. And they ended up getting in trouble with the authorities and the FTC and the equivalent in Australia for doing some bad trading practices. But the thing that I saw there was the guy doing a demonstration of Overture. So I don't know whether you know Overture.
Yes.
Do you remember Overture? It was the first PPC platform before Google Ads started. And I sat there in amazement thinking, oh my goodness, I can actually type in a keyword term and it tells me how many people are searching on Overture every month for that keyword term. And to me, that was like crystal ball. That was amazing. So that sort of got me hooked. And then I started doing stuff with affiliate marketing and just sort of mucking around, doing a little bit of advertising for our computer business. And then Google Ads came along and I thought, Google Ads, this should be interesting. So I started using that and experimenting with that. And it got to a stage where some friends and family members and associates would say, oh, can you help us set up one of those Google AdWord things? I said, sure. Yeah, no worries. So I just helped them. Didn't charge them anything, would set them up. And then sort of a little while into doing that for probably 4 or 5 months, the penny dropped and I thought, this is where everything's going. This is the future. So I decided to get rid of the computer supply business and start doing the digital marketing stuff. And became partners with Google back in 2003 and set up the agency. It was a different name back then. It's called Online Impact now, which has been that way since 2012. Met my business partner in about 2004, Alan Stewart, and he lives over on that side up the top there, over there where my finger's going. So we've got a team of people who do web development and various digital marketing stuff. But domain names has always been a part of that. It's always been the two go hand in hand. You have to have, if you're going to have a website, you need a domain name to have that website. And whether it's a .com or a .com.au or a .co.uk, it's all relevant depending on where you live and who you're targeting. And if you want an international audience, of course, you've got to have a .com. Well,
Right.
you don't have to have it. It doesn't have to be a .com, but you're silly if you don't have a .com.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we own onlineimpact.com, but we also own onlineimpact.com.au. And we run everything off the .com.au because it's more relevant to Australia and our clients. But we thought it would be wise to have the .com. So back in 2007, I started a podcast called Oz Domainer, and that was one of the first podcasts on domains. Monty Khan had a podcast before that, and there may have been some others. Don't quote me on the fact that I'm not saying I was the only one, but I was one of the few who was actually podcasting, and I started basically thought, well, I'm going to learn more about domain names and domain investing, and probably one of the best ways to do that is to get people on who are already successful talking about it.
Right.
And I can educate them, the marketplace and people who are interested in domain investing, learn myself and make some great contacts and networks. And that's how it's worked. I've had people on like Frank Schilling and Rick Schwartz and the Costello brothers, and they were all on my podcast before probably many others. I had the Costello brothers on. That was the first time they were ever on a podcast together. So
right.
that was fun.
How'd you keep them apart?
Well, they were in different places in the world because we did it over Skype. All that. Look, the thing is, because I live in the most isolated the most isolated city in the world, I should say, Perth. We're the furthest away from any other point in terms of other cities. It's an advantage and a disadvantage. During all these crazy times we've had, it's been an advantage. But in terms of, you can't just have someone rock up to your studio to sit down and be a guest. It all had to be over Skype, and it was only Skype audio back then. We weren't using Zoom and things that we do now for the video content. So, and I kept the podcast up on the Oz Domainer side of things until about 2014, I think it was. Then had a break, and I didn't keep the website going. I kept the domain names, which now point to the podcast I'm doing now called The Domainer Show, at domainer.com.au with my good friend and co-host Rob Keay. So never a dull moment. Never a dull moment.
So then, just kind of taking a step back now, when you started the podcast, I guess how many years were you already into domain investing, or was it just one of the things that you were just starting and it just kind of seemed to go hand in hand?
It was about 3 years in. I'd already been buying domains on and off, not full blown, but and that was one of the reasons. So that was 2007 that I started the podcast. So I'd been probably 3 or 4 years before that getting domains. And I just figured this is, I need to learn more. I need to actually dig deep and get people on that I can learn from. So that was when I decided to start the podcast. And I think anyone who's thinking of starting a podcast, it's a wise idea. It doesn't matter what the topic is, because you do learn a lot and make connections. And all the people I've connected with over the years, like Ron Jackson and Morgan Linton. Like Morgan, I started my blog / podcast about 4 months before Morgan Linton started his. And we got to know each other because we were both newbies on the scene. So he's been to Perth and we've caught up and we've done some things that we can't talk about on this podcast. It's the old, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
He's telling on you, Morgan. He is telling on you.
Yeah, it's all lies. It's fake news. So Morgan, love you, mate. Morgan's been on our podcast a few times, so he's an awesome dude, very, very clever. And look, I think that's the thing. A podcast is, and you've probably found this yourself because what's this episode number 77, 87, something? How many episodes you done?
Man,
now?
Well, I've got so much that's in post-production, so I'm closing in probably somewhere close around about 90 right now.
Okay, so by the time this episode comes out, it's going to be Christmas, right? So there'll be snow falling on the countryside behind me. So I know the feeling. You got to rack them and stack them.
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
But no, that's yeah. So look, I think domain names is an interesting community to be in. I think it's a very sharing community.
Right.
We do have competitors. I mean, if everyone's trying to go for the same name particularly in the aftermarkets, then you're starting to bid against each other, and this happens. To lots of people I know. We're having a chat after and say, "Oh, were you bidding on such and such?" And, "Oh, yeah, I was bidding on that." "Oh, if I'd known that, I probably wouldn't have bothered." We're sort of bidding each other up. It's like we're competing against each other. Like, what the heck are we doing that for?
Well, and so like when you first started out, then in terms of like prior to the podcast, had you found a bit of success in terms of buying and selling domains, or were you just more strictly on the buying? I guess, were you buying and selling, or were you buying and developing?
It was buying and holding, and I've probably done more buying and holding than buying and selling. More selling recently, but back in those days, I was selling a few names here and there, but the systems weren't anywhere near as easy to set up for selling compared to now.
Right. So how were you selling? Like on what platforms, or were they third party sales or what?
Yeah. It was third party sales. We were using Fabulous, Cedo, and I'm trying to think where else we had the names at the time. There weren't that many options back then.
Right.
Park.com as well. Yeah, that's what's popping in my head now. Of course, now there's a million options.
Right.
But back in the sort of 2005, 2006, there weren't anywhere near as many aftermarket and sales platforms compared to what there is now. So I think now getting into buying and selling domains, you've got a lot more options, and you can have your names listed across a whole host of things. I use FT now. I love FT. Hey, Doran, how are you, mate? Good to see you. Doran and I have been chatting a bit recently, and I love that. I've got a high percentage of my names set up with a marketplace. I use my own domain, enames.com.au. Okay. So we've got a lot of stuff not parked. Yeah, well, I suppose they're on there as this platform. Still getting sorted out, going through names, pricing, doing various things. The drill. Having some as buy it now, having some as offer only, and experimenting and testing and getting sales. But yeah, so look, probably the majority of the sales I've had over the years have been in the .com.au space, but I've also sold quite a fair few .coms, .co.uk's, .ins. So
that's interesting. So that now, obviously, for most domainers that enter in, you just hear it. It's the mantra. It's the gung-ho.com is king. You hear that. But in your instance, you found success doing .com.au, what'd you say, .co or .com.uk?
.co.uk, yeah.
Right, .co.uk, .in. So like, kind of help me understand a bit of, because I've heard you, I think you had your original podcast and it was on a .com, but then everything else that I've seen or heard you say is typically .com.au. So kind of walk us through what the difference is and why you chose to go the less traveled path.
Yeah,
or what appears
absolutely.
to be the less traveled path.
Well, here's the thing you've got to understand is there's no disputing from me that .com is the king of domains globally, okay? If you want to have an international presence and you're expanding your business, no matter what country you live in, if you're going international, you really do need to have a .com. If you don't, then you're kidding yourself, and you're having a lot of traffic bleed going to whatever extension you're running on, a .co or a .io. And this is talked about a million times, and I'm a big believer in have the .com if at all possible. Hence the reason why with Online Impact we own the .com as well as the .com.au to help prevent any of that confusion in the marketplace. But the thing that a lot of people forget is that the CCTLDs of countries like Australia and UK are the dominant domain extension. Like 85% plus of all of our websites that run in Australia are .com.au. .com is a distant cousin. You see it occasionally, but it doesn't pop its head up that much unless the company is internationally based. But if it's a local business or an Australian-based business, then 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the .com.au with the occasional .net.au, which would be sort of the equivalent of a .net versus a .com with an international viewpoint. But you look in on TV advertising, listen to radio advertising, magazines, TV, etc. It's .com.au all the time. So .com isn't that important to us in Australia, but if you could get the .com, then we say get the .com. But sometimes, like as an example, one of my domain names is audiobooks.com.au. Now, I'd love to own audiobooks.com. It's out of my price range at the moment, but I'm king of the castle in Australia when it comes to audiobooks. Now, we don't have a massive population. We've got 25 million people that live in Australia. So we're just the equivalent of a state of the US, so we're tiny in that regard. But we do sort of punch above our weight in terms of domains and traffic, and even what our names sell for. They sell for quite decent prices, even in comparison to the .com. Typically, it's not a hard and fast rule, but you'll often see sales that are somewhere about 10% of what a .com would sell for. Which isn't too bad considering that the US is 350 million people,
right?
And Australia's got 25 million people. So in terms of the ratio and what the domains sell for, they do quite well. And the good thing with the Australian market is to buy and sell names in Australia, you need to have an Australian presence. You need to be an Australian company or have a trademark in Australia for a domain name. You need to have what we call an ACN, which is an Australian company number, or an ABN, which is an Australian business number. And if you don't have those, you can't register a .com.au. So, Alvin, if you don't have those, you couldn't just go onto a registrar and go and pick up a .com.au. So in that sense, it keeps the competition within Australia. So right. It's not dissimilar to the .co.uk space, except it's easier to go and register a .co.uk outside of the country that you're living in, or outside of the UK, I should say. So I've got quite a few of those I've picked up over the years, and had some good sales in .co.uk as well.
So here's a quick question then, because it just, when you said it kind of just opened some things up for me in terms of realizing and saying, okay, well, it's kind of built that the only players, if you will, in terms of domain investors, can only be based in Australia. So then it kind of begs the question of like, okay, well, what is the so-called Australian domain investing market? What does that look like? I mean, are you talking maybe, a handful of people, a couple hundred, a couple thousand? Like,
oh no, it would be, well, it depends on what you're talking about. Whether you're talking about domain investors per se, like someone like me, there might be 100, 200. Don't really know the figure. I'm probably just plucking that one out of the air. Right. So in terms of how many people there are who are in our space buying and selling as a business, or even as a part-time business, there's not a huge amount, but there's a very healthy end user market. So there's lots of people who we get inquiries all the time for our names. And just to be clear, you don't have to live in Australia to be able to register. You've just got to tick those boxes. You don't have to be in the country. You don't have to, but you would need to have an Australian business registration or a company name, which you can set up through lawyers externally. You could live in the States, and you can go and set up you can go and apply for a trademark for a certain name, and then register the domain name. There's ways around it, but it's not as easy as me just hopping on GoDaddy and go and registering a .com. Anyone can do it no matter where they live. So, well, that's probably not exactly true, but pretty close. But so you get, there's pros and cons to it, mate. It's one of those things that we like the space. We like the .com.au space. We know it well. We know what works here and what doesn't work here. And, it's sort of like we're the big fish in a small pond.
Right, right.
It's like we don't have the competition in terms of we don't have tens of thousands of other people we're fighting over the .com name for, but that's one of the advantages that .com has, is because it's really popular and it's more liquid than the .com.au space. Those names would be turned over much faster than ours. But it's why I don't just have .com.au. I have other names.
Right.
I don't just play in this space. I diversify as much as possible. But there's so many opportunities for domains that we can get here in Australia and look, probably the typical price I would sell a name for would be in the $5,000 US mark, and that's for a name I hand registered for a couple of years before for $10. So
Man.
they're not dissimilar numbers. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
In terms of flipping names, but when you get to the, as an example, money.com.au was sold recently, and it was purchased for $400,000, and that name would probably sell for 4 or 5 million at least, if it was a .com.
Right.
Okay, so but again, I'm saying it's not a hard and fast rule. The whole 10% in terms of the equivalent .com.au is what it's worth compared to a .com. It's a very loose guideline, so don't take it as as gospel.
It's interesting to me in terms of the .com.au, because it seems to be that it's almost as it's like a sleeper market, to where all eyes are, on legacy TLDs, if you will. And here it is, a space and a market over here that Ed is just kind of, going along, doing his thing, making good on it. And so, so help us understand, how today, how big is your portfolio?
All up about 1,300.
Is that the largest that it's been?
No, it's been bigger than that. I've cut down a lot, but the thing is, it's a spread. It's a mix of all of the ones I mentioned. I've got a few .co's as well. I don't have the new GTLDs. I haven't touched. I've dabbled with a few of them. I think I've got one .io. I've got one .io, which is a 2-word solarroof.io. That's the only thing I've got that's in that space. But 80% would be .com.au, and the rest is a mix of .com, .co.uk, quite a lot of .in. .in is India, for those who don't know.
Correct.
It's there's over 1 billion people who live in India,
and growing.
And growing. The middle class is about the same size as the total population of the US. But they don't, the spend on the domains isn't anywhere near as high as probably even Australia. And you would think, okay, well, it should be bigger because there's more people, but it's not. It isn't as advanced in terms of the economy compared to Australia. But I've got names in the Indian, like solarpanels.in and solarpanel.in, waterpurifiers.in, some names like that that would be significantly high priced in the .com, but it's India, so they're valued a lot less.
Right.
But it's a growing marketplace, and I think it's important to have a little bit of diversity in your portfolio, in my opinion. But there's many people who don't agree with that at all. It's only .com, and I have no problem with that. It's my interest. I like to have some different things that I think are popular, particularly country code domains. I don't like. I'm not, .horse, and there's all these types of 1,000 domain extensions that are out there now that don't make any sense to me, and they probably don't make sense to the end user, which is more important. And there's very few that I would ever think would be worth any money, because you look over the last 30 years of the World Wide Web and how many trillions of dollars have been spent on advertising, promoting not only the .com, but also in our country, the .com.au, because the internet here started not that much longer after it kicked off in the US. We were right behind you. And, we've had all this money promoting the .com.au space. So it's like it's highly unlikely that anything else is going to take over in our country. And then we've got the new .au, what we call the direct registration, coming out. So it would be, as an example, audiobooks.au. So getting rid of the .com. And there's less restrictions on who can go and register a .au when it comes out. Because, a teenager could go and register a .au to use for a science project or a school project. They don't have to have a company and a business number, like I said before. But could be another couple of years off before that happens.
Mm.
So, but I don't think a portfolio size is relevant, because I'd quite happily give away all of my portfolio for voice.com, right? So, what I'm saying, that it's the number of domains you've got isn't, I think more is, less is more, in terms of go for quality rather than quantity. And, that's, I'm sort of working more in that space now, getting the higher quality names rather than the lower quality ones, because it's just easier long term, I think.
Right. So then how do you go, because you've mentioned the .in domain. So how do you go about, what's your mindset in terms of how you go about pricing the .in name specifically, but then just throughout your portfolio?
That's the question that you get asked about any domain, isn't it? How do you price a domain? It's like you do a bit of research, you see what other domains' comparative sales have been, but then you're not, you can't compare a .com to a .in or a .au. It's like you just have to have a stab in the direction of what you want to get for the name, what you think it's valued at, and then see what happens. And ultimately, a domain's only ever going to sell when someone agrees to pay the price that you've got. And if they don't, you could be sitting there for years to come without selling it. So it's really no different to pricing a .com. Like, how would you price a .com? You look at it and base it on other things that have happened, some comparative names that are similar in the market that have sold. But even that's a rough guess. Like, if someone had said to you 5 months ago that voice.com was going to sell for 30 million, what would you have said? I mean, most people would have gone, go away. That's not going to happen. Ridiculous. No one's going to pay 30 million for a domain name.
Right.
But when you listen to that fantastic interview that was done by Andrew Rosner on Domain Sherpa, when he's talking with Michael Saylor, who was the owner of voice.com, and the process of he's getting, his first offer was $150,000.
Right.
And then he kept getting more offers and more offers. And he was dealing with his broker at the time that these offers were coming through, from my understanding. And then he didn't even get on the phone to the guys that wanted to buy it until it got to 22.5 million. What size cojones, or cojones, however you say it in Mexico, what size of gonads did this guy have to get to that point and turn these offers down? So if he's getting to 30 million, he's turned all the offers down before 30 million.
Right.
But he didn't need the money. The guy has hundreds of millions of dollars. He owns MicroStrategy.com. That's his business, and it's a very successful software company. Been around since 1985, and he just bought $400 million worth of Bitcoin. And so, in his mind, he was giving that away cheap.
Yeah,
30 million.
totally.
He thinks it's $1 billion domain, and I don't really disagree with him in terms of the long-term value of what it could be used for. So pricing domains is just like a crapshoot half the time. It's really I sold a domain not long ago, keynotes.com.au for $5,000 or $6,000 US, I think it was, and I'd hand registered that $10 about 3 or 4 years before. And my mate Rob, who I do the podcast with, funnily enough, that's how we we knew each other before this, but this got us back together. And then I said we should be doing this podcast together. But he said, I could have got you way more, because Rob's a domain broker in Australia. He's one of the top domain brokers. And he said, I could have got you 30 grand for that. I know the guy who was he wanted to buy it. I'm going, oh, great. So
where were you,
mate? Where were you when I was selling it? But it's the stars align, they don't align, and
right.
I can guarantee you there's plenty of people who listen to this podcast who have sold domains going, oh damn, I really let that one go for too cheap.
Right.
But that's been I've sold plenty of other names where I've gone, I cannot believe I sold that name for whatever price. I'm amazed. I've sold hyphenated 2word.com.au for $5,000, so.
Wait, what? No, not 2-3 words plus hyphens.
2-word hyphenated. I don't have any NDAs on this, so I can say it. Ownerbuilder.com.au. $5,000.
Okay, so that why would someone use a hyphenated domain?
Well, that's a very good question. Look, here's this argument that everyone keeps coming back to and talking about all the time, and then because I'm in the digital marketing space, I can see both sides of the coin to this, is that I could get ownerbuilder.com.au ranking just as well as I could get ownerbuilder without a hyphen ranking, okay? So in terms of getting traffic and getting it ranking, Google doesn't really give any bias to those names, and they've stated that the domain name really does not have any play in the ranking of the name, okay? But that being said, is what you can guarantee will happen over time is even if the hyphenated owner-builder.com.au domain gets great success, great search engine rankings, they're going to have a bleed off of people who forget there's a hyphen in it. Right? So someone goes to type in the name or do a search and they see ownerbuilder.com.au without the hyphen, there's that potential traffic bleed off. So you've always got that at risk. But it doesn't mean that you can't have a successful business on a hyphenated name. If you're in Germany, for example, the majority of the names, that's a high percentage. I was at a traffic conference. I was actually at the first CCTLD traffic conference in Amsterdam in 2009. And we had someone from the .de domain registrar there talking. It was a lady, I can't remember her name, sorry. But more than 50% of their domains, from what I remember, are hyphenated. That's what they're used to. that's what they put in between two words, the hyphen. So this is where it comes down to, you've got to understand your target market, the place you live in, what people do. Don't make the assumption that .com is going to be super successful in Australia or the UK, because the UK is the same as Australia. They have very, very biased to their .co.uk, 80% plus. You go there and look around, all the advertising and marketing stuff, it's all very biased to the .co.uk. So you can have success with any domain. It just doesn't, in terms of search engines and rankings, etc. But it just means you're leaving a lot on the table, and brand dilution and brand confusion if you don't have the proper name that doesn't have the hyphens. But this is what I'm saying. It's like, it doesn't surprise me these days that people will just want to go and buy a hyphenated name because their option to pay for the unhyphenated is out of their budget. It's no different to why does someone go and register a .i domain for a startup? They don't have the $500,000 that someone wants for the single word, whatever they want in the .com. They got to start somewhere.
Right.
There's always a compromise, isn't there? You start off with what you can afford, and then hopefully, if the .com or the equivalent is available that you want to go for, when the time is right, you can get it. But that doesn't always happen. If someone goes and builds out that domain,
right,
you stuffed. You're probably never going to go and get that name, and then you'll always be the second run player in the game, because whoever owns the king of the castle in terms of global.com, then that is going to be the supreme domain extension versus your hyphenated name or your .io or your .co. And there's nothing wrong with those domain extensions. I'm not saying they're total crap. There's a few of them that are good. I think I've got about, 7 or 8 .co domains, ones that I like. But that's about it. I don't go too far from things that I think are not going to be the strongest they can be for what I'm going to be doing with them.
Interesting. Yeah. Now you mentioned in terms of investing in domains. Now, obviously, being a digital marketer, do you have a portion of your portfolio that you develop into lead gen sites?
Yes, slowly but surely. We're doing that now, but it's always like doing client stuff first and we come second. It's always a story. Like, look, I've never registered a domain name without looking at it and going, I can see what this could be as a business. Probably 90% of my domains, I can see the end use case point of what that domain could be used for. And the majority of names I've got probably 10% of my names, 15% would be what we would classify as brandable. So an example, emumedia.com.au. That's an example of a brandable name. koalamedia.com.au, okay? Two good combination of words. And people don't forget the emu or the koala or the kangaroo because it's our animals of our country.
Right.
Media, right? So they're a good pairing, but that's what I would classify as a brandable. But then, as an example, I've got audiobooks.com.au as one, cardboard.com.au. These are all names that are real words that mean real things and relate to something that's a dictionary word or a product or a service.
Right.
So if I said to you, what do you think is on audiobooks.com.au, Alvin, do you think you could guess what is on audiobooks.com.au?
Hardback books.
Yeah, see, this is why you shouldn't be buying domains. Don't buy any more domains, Alvin. It's terrible.
You're selling
guess.
But you're selling hardback books, right? He's like, no.
Yeah, that's
audio books.
Yes. So look, I do realize you're joking. So, but case in point, yes. Okay, so audiobooks.com.au sells audiobooks. Now, that being said, we partnered with audiobooks.com. So,
Okay. That's what I was
Yep.
about to ask. I was like, so in that instance, was it that you went out with audiobooks.com.au and you just begin to develop a business, or did you partner with someone else?
Partnered with them. Yep. And look, here's another way that we make a very decent chunk of money, because let me say this: parking and type-in traffic are not dead.
Wait, what?
They're much less.
Wait, hold on. Let me clean my ears out here. It's kind of like, wait, what? Did you say the P word, parking?
Yes.
Everybody says it's dead.
Well, don't listen to what everybody says unless you test and measure yourself.
There you go.
There's this particular animal. It's called a lemming. Have you heard of a lemming? They all get together and run towards cliffs and then jump off together because they follow what everyone else is doing. Or sheep is another version. So, for your listeners there, this is what I recommend you look into. I'm not saying it's guaranteed to work, and I'm not saying it's foolproof. Have a look. If you've got any generic domain names that get any type of type-in traffic at all for a product or service, see if you can match it up to an affiliate program. There's 1 million affiliate programs out there for all different types of products and services. Point that to the affiliate link you set up with the company. Don't worry about, and if anyone wants to find you and find your name to buy it off you, as long as you don't have whois privacy on your .com domains and you have it open for people to contact you, they'll be able to find you. Point the domain to an affiliate program and see what happens. I'm very confident that you will make more money from doing that than from parking it just for ad clicks. Waste of time. I'm in the high 5 figures for the PPC traffic that I get for .com.au domains.
And across how many domains would you estimate? Or
probably about 100. So here's
that's
the thing,
mind-boggling. 100 names, churning out high 5 figures. Wow.
Yep. That is possible if you have the right name.
Right.
And this is the thing, you've got to have the right name. You've got to have a high keyword search volume domain that can be matched up to an affiliate program of a similar nature. Let me give you an example. If you typed in transcribed.com.au, so transcribed as in transcriptions, okay? So transcribed.com.au goes through to a partner affiliate program that does transcription services. And okay, it's a perfect match. Type in traffic, goes to there, they buy the product, I get a sale. Another example, freevpn.com.au. 35,000 searches a month in Australia for free VPN, partnered with a VPN company. Guess what happens? They go there, they get the free version, and at some stage they buy the paid version, a certain percentage. Now, you could do this for any type of product, any type of service. So what I'm saying is experiment, test it. And I think a lot of people will be surprised if they have any decent volume of traffic that matching it up with an affiliate program, mate, ka-ching, ka-ching, the register just keeps ringing, right? And you're going to get far more than you're going to get PPC. I've tested this, and there's no comparison to what you get, in my opinion and in my experience. But if it doesn't work, you can always point. You can always go back. Doing what it was. Go back and point it to what it was doing before, which was probably nothing. Okay. If you spend, look, everyone's going to spend different amounts of money buying a domain name. It's obviously a different scenario. If you've spent $100,000 on a domain, either you've got a lot of money just sitting around doing nothing with it and you don't care and you park it, well, obviously and I see that. I mean, you've probably seen it too.
Right.
You see a name that's sold for $10, $20, $100,000 and you check on it 6 months later and it's parked. You go, well, hang on, why did you spend all that money and you're just going to sit on it and not do anything with it? Doesn't make sense. Whereas I've got $10 domains that are making $5-6 grand a year from park traffic, from affiliate traffic, I should say. But you need the traffic, right? You need the type in traffic. None of this is search engine related. I'm not talking about getting them indexed on Google. This is all pure type in traffic. So if you've got a domain that you've had sitting at Uni Registry for a couple of years, and you can go and look at your traffic stats and you see you get 2 visitors a month, then pointing it to an affiliate program ain't going to help you.
Yeah.
Highly unlikely. But if you've got 1,000 visitors a month or 500 visitors a month even, why not test it and see if there's something? It takes no time at all to go and find an affiliate program, sign up for it, get the link, change your DNS settings in your account, point the domain to it, and see what happens. Nothing to lose. You're not going to be losing any parking traffic money if you've made like $2.05 over the last month. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
hey,
why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
No one talks about it. It just blows my mind that hardly anyone on any of these podcasts talks about what I've just been talking about.
So, so there's so many questions there because we hear about parking, we hear about affiliate, but in most cases, in terms of affiliate, we're hearing about it under the disguise of fully developed websites. Nobody's actually talking about, and it may be, now let me ask you this. Is it because that, and you said it or kind of alluded to it, because it's almost kind of the chicken and the egg, because you don't necessarily know that a given domain has type in traffic. Because you could go to, let's say, take a domain and you could go to, let's just say like name Python. You could look in Google Trends and see that it's trending and see that it has search volume, but that doesn't necessarily correlate to meaning that it's going to have type in traffic. So are there tools that are out there that you could actually use to, before you actually buy this domain that's available for registration or third-party purchase from aftermarket? I mean, like, are there tools that could like help you or guide you along the way?
Look, here's the thing. Back in the day, you used to be able to go and register a domain name, have it for a day or two, and see what the traffic was. And then if it wasn't any good, you could return it back to the registrar.
Right.
I don't think you can do that anymore. I think they've stopped that completely. So you could traffic sample what was actually coming through. So my point being, I'm not saying to people who already don't have domains just to go and run out and register a whole stack of random domains. If you've already got domains, I'm saying, that have some traffic, why not test it out and see what it does in the affiliate space rather than just the parking space? And if you're worried about not getting the potential sale, if that's your core thing, like you're all about the sale, not about getting income from the domain, then maybe don't do it. But as I said before, if someone really wants your name, like if someone says, I really want to get that name, and you haven't blocked all your privacy stuff on Whois and set it up that way, so people can actually go and do a Whois and go, oh, look, here's his email address. I can email the guy and see if he wants to sell it. You don't have to completely rely on the parking companies and the aftermarkets just to sell a domain. Someone will get in touch with you if they want it. You ask any of these successful domain brokers, if they want a name, they're going to hunt it down. Whois privacy be damned, they'll find you. Okay, right. So make it easy for yourself. Have your Whois open, point it to an affiliate program, see what happens. If you've got a name that's sitting there doing nothing right now that could all of a sudden then make you $100 a year, nothing huge, that's paid for 10 domain renewals. So you're helping wash the face of the expense of your portfolio.
Right.
So why not test it? Now, the challenge, of course, is if you've got hundreds and hundreds of domains and thousands of domains, it's going to take time to do. Whereas I've been doing this over years, so I've been doing it gradually. So it's. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's get rich quick. None of that. I'm saying it's something worth looking into, testing, measuring, experimenting, which is everything that should be done if you're doing digital marketing. So it's just one of those things. You got to look into it.
So
but no one talks about it.
Now you mentioned affiliate programs. Now, are we talking like Amazon affiliate? What else? Commission Junction? Like, are we talking about those or like?
I wouldn't say no, but look, as some people may or may not be aware, Amazon had a huge affiliate change over the last 6 months, and they've basically like halved their commissions that they're paying out. And so I'm a big believer in going straight to the source. So finding, like, I deal with a lot of SaaS products, software as a service, and because here's what I like about software as a service. So if you've got any domains in that type of space, they're fantastic, particularly ones that pay recurring income,
right?
Like hosting companies and like I sell, if you go to videomaker.com.au, I've partnered with invideo.io. So they're a video production software platform that helps you do videos for Facebook and YouTube and various things, and you can have fancy graphics, you can have text on them, all that sort of stuff. And they're killing it right now. They're doing really, really well. But that domain, videomaker.com.au, I think, don't quote me on it, but I think it gets about 14,000 searches a month or something in Australia, looking at the Australian data, not global. And that ticks away nicely and makes very decent money. It was making practically nothing as a park name, but because I've paired it with a product and a service that matches the name, the generic name of what that domain is. So, but they use an affiliate tool to manage their affiliate program, and there's lots of sort of ones you can buy off the shelf that provide it as a service. But you can go to Commission Junction, you can go to Share a Sale. There's a million different companies out there that have like their affiliate marketplaces per se. Commission Junction's a big one of the biggest. And there's hundreds and hundreds and thousands of companies under all different types of categories that you can go and sign up and apply for an affiliate link, and off you go. And it doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to pay for these. You get the link and you connect it with your domain name and see what happens.
So I get the link. So then essentially it's basically forwarding the domain to whatever that link is.
Yes, you would classify it as domain arbitrage. It is. Well, that's all it is. I'm just taking the traffic and flowing it straight through from someone typing in, I'm going to have a guess that there's something at videomaker.com.au or videomaker.com or videomaker.co.uk, whatever the domain is. Someone is sitting there typing that in and going to that. Now, here's the thing. There's lots of people I know. I can hear all the voices on the podcast and in the chat and in the comments going, domain parking, there's no one looking for it. There's no such thing as typing traffic anymore. Heard it all a million freaking times. I don't care. You can say whatever you like, but I'm seeing what I'm getting. So, right. So ultimately at the end of the day is, yes, there is far less type-in traffic than there was 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. No, I'm not disputing that. So much of it has been sucked up now by the Googles of the world. But there are still people who type in a domain name that they think in their head, that they think there'll be something there, and they go and have a look. And if there's nothing there, you've got zero chance of making any money. But if there's something there that matches the message to the marketplace, then you potentially have a sale. And I could go and check my affiliate stats now, and I'm telling you, the cash register is ringing as we're speaking. There's something happening.
Yeah, because you're typically catching the buyer in the process. Because like you said, if that person is typing it in, I know I could probably hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, but edit Alvin, that person is typing it in. They're probably a domain investor," and it's like, well,
No,
no, that's far from the truth.
That is so far from the truth. It's not funny. Domain investors are a micro
Exactly.
micro percentage. The end user is all I care about. I'm not worried. I'm not thinking about domain investors coming along to, again, if your core thing is you're just trying to flip domains and wholesale domains, then you're going to be dealing with the domainer ecosystem and making connections. It's a different story. And I'm not saying not to do that. I'm just saying what I'm talking about is a different part of what I do. I mean, I'm selling domains. I'm getting traffic. We're developing some of our sites out. Everything has a different purpose and a different strategy. So you've really got to look at what works best for you. I'm just saying to people to think about it because it's easy in the sense it's not a complicated thing to do.
Right.
So, for example, off the scratch, I see a domain that I can pick up, a hand-registered domain or one that's coming through the aftermarket, a drop name, and I can pick a name up for $10 or $300 or $3,000, whatever it is. And I go, that is a perfect match to what this company offers for their software product or for their whatever it is, for their e-commerce store that sells this widget. Okay. Get the affiliate program, sign up for it. It costs you nothing, 99.9% of the time. I don't think I've ever been charged to join an affiliate program. Connect it, point it up, change your DNS to point to that link, see what happens. You've got nothing to lose unless you're really concerned about people not being able to find you to buy the name. But I say you can do things to make that a bit easier for people. You can still list it in the aftermarket.
Correct.
There's nothing saying you cannot list your name in most of these platforms that I'm aware of. So if someone is doing a search, they can see it. Now, if they typed it in direct to go to it, they're going to see that there's something on there. You could go and list it on Flipper. You can do all sorts of things that are still going to make it viable for the domain to be found, to be purchased by someone who wants the domain. But why not give yourself the best chance of generating cash flow from that domain while it's just sitting there doing nothing, being parked? The parking companies hate that I'm telling you this because they're the ones that make most of the money when someone clicks on an ad, or Google or whoever else they're getting their traffic through.
Right.
But if you can park a domain to something that when someone buys it, buys the product, like the in-video one I talked about, the average sale price, and it says a lot of this is recurring income.
Right.
It's $30 to $50 US commission.
Man.
So it doesn't take long, like particularly if you haven't had a huge outlay for a domain. Now, look, again, this is one of the reasons I look at other extensions for traffic because .com domains are not the only names that get traffic. Hello, everybody.
Right.
So I think maybe broadening your way of thinking and looking at other possibilities of where there are other markets that maybe aren't as competitive, but there's still traffic. Use the Google Keyword Planner tool. Make sure you check the country you want to look at the traffic for. See what's happening in the .co.uk United Kingdom space. Have a look at what's happening in India. Is there traffic for a keyword term in India? It doesn't all have to be .com.
Right.
Yeah. So experiment, test, see what's happening. But the affiliate arbitrage, we'll call that. That's what we're going to officially call it now, Alvin, is the affiliate arbitrage model. Was something that was really popular back when I got started, and it was.
Then how did it lose or go under the radar? Because I mean, I just don't hear anybody talking about it, or maybe I'm just running with the wrong people. I mean, it could be both.
Here's the thing that I've learned about going to domain conferences and digital marketing conferences and stuff. There's a lot of stuff people don't talk about. Like if they're onto a good thing. They're not broadcasting it, right? So this is something I hardly ever talk about. Like it's not a common thing I'm blurting out every 5 minutes because I I'm creating competition for myself, and
Right.
and B, most people don't listen or don't care or are resigned and cynical about domains and traffic and parking, and they sort of just, and again, it comes back to listen to what I'm saying. I'm not saying that there's tons of traffic out there for parking and direct navigation. It's much less than it used to be, but it's still significant enough with the right domain and the right affiliate program that you can actually make some money.
Right.
I like making money. I like selling domains. I like however it comes. It's like, I'm not biased against the actual how the money comes in, whether it's a sale or whether it's cash flow from affiliate sales.
Right.
And again, you've got to look at like some of the ones I deal with, they're recurring. So you get the sale for the $50, and then guess what happens the next month? As long as there's still a customer, $50 again. It's like, it's just crazy.
So because I can hear it just in the back over here, somebody's out there saying, okay, but Ed, you're saying this, it sounds good, I'm gung-ho, you got me excited. Now, how long is it going to take to go and set up something like this? Is this something that I can sit down on a Saturday at 8 a.m. and by 11 a.m. I've already got my affiliate account, I'm already approved, I'm already purchasing domains, whether that's aftermarket or whether that's hand registration and forwarding the domain? Like,
okay.
Like, what's the time frame to get started on something like this?
The many variables with that, but
first one being the person.
Well, of course. What's your skill level? Do you know how to change the DNS in your registrar? Do you know how to, there's a lot of things that I've been doing for 20 years that I can do in minutes.
Right.
It may take someone an hour. So everyone's going to be different. Everyone's user levels and skills are different. But an example would be if I see a name and I go, this name hasn't been registered or it's dropped, I can pick it up. So 5 minutes to register the domain. Depending on what the affiliate program is, it could take 5 minutes, an instant setup, an instant approval, or it could take 24 hours because they have to approve your affiliate application, or it could be 2 days. So that side can sometimes take longer. But if you've already got an established account with someone like Share a Sale or Commission Junction, then all of the companies that are actually listed in there selling their products through those platforms, sometimes it's instant approval. So you can go in and do a search in Commission Junction or Share a Sale for whatever the company is and go, oh, great, here's one, sign up for it. And they may ask you a couple of questions and you get approved instantly. Others, it takes a while. So it could be domain registration, connecting to affiliate program, 10 minutes, or it could be 10 hours, or it could be 10 days. That's what I'm saying. There's lots of variables. But in terms of having the idea and going, okay, I can see where this domain can be matched up with an affiliate program. That just depends on how much time you've got to do the research. The 80-20 rule applies. It's probably not even the 80-20 rule. It'll be the 90-10 rule.
Right.
So 10% of people or less will take any action on what I've just said. They'll have their little thing going off in their head. No, there's no typing traffic. That's all rubbish. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not even going to bother. Great. Okay, don't. That's fine with me. Don't do it. So those who do and experiment and do have success, well, good on you. But you have to have a domain name that has traffic.
Right.
And I can't guarantee the name you've got in your head that you're going to go and register tomorrow that you think has got traffic has any traffic. Yeah, if all the check boxes are ticked, if it's a keyword term that has search traffic, and you're not registering something that's got a hyphen in it because then you're stuffed, or if you're registering a .net, then you're probably not going to get as much traffic. You're not going to get as much traffic as the .com or the equivalent CCTLD like a .com.au for our marketplace, because people aren't typing in .com at the end, they're typing in .com.au.
Right.
So you need to understand the market. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot of understanding. the point of me saying all of this, Alvin, was to put it on people's radar so they can go, okay. I hadn't thought of doing that. It seems very obvious to me,
right?
But it's not obvious to everybody. If you don't give it a go, you'll never know.
Indeed. And with that, so Ed, well, man, hey, thank you so much for sharing your journey story, as well as the, what you call it, the affiliate arbitrage.
Affiliate arbitrage, or domain/affiliate arbitrage. Some of the old timers may have done a bit of it back in the day, but people who are new to the domain industry have never heard of it before. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know what you don't know. And beware and do your research, and don't just run out. It's not a get rich quick scheme. You've got to invest some time and energy and understand, just like you would if you registered any domain.
Right.
Please don't go out and just go and randomly do this. If you've already got domains, look at your portfolio and find some that you can do a test on. So someone's still going to go out and do crazy things now. You know that, don't you? It's like,
and then blame us. Well, you too said that if I did this.
I could just see it now. The comments will be hilarious in 6 weeks' time or 6 months' time, Alvin. You'll look back over this podcast and that bloody Australian guy, what a load of crap he talked.
Exactly.
Right,
well, hey, Ed, thank you so much again for sharing your journey. And like I said, man, I wish you well.
And we'll have you on our show talking about your journey sometime in the very, very near future.
Certainly. Like I said, would love to.
Yep, cool.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Kickstart Commerce, where we share search marketing and domain strategies to help grow your business. Please subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or Podbean. Last but not least, please visit kickstartcommerce.com to subscribe to the newsletter sharing tips and tricks about the disciplines of digital strategy. Thanks, and that's all for now.